I'm Clint Culberson with lordsofconsciousness.com, and today I am joined by two wonderful people, husband and wife, Jesse and Johanna Boudreau, who are with Zia Energetics. And you guys, I met you guys here at Unify Fest in Santa Fe, and you guys are from Santa Fe, and you guys run your company with Zia Energetics, and you are all about permaculture. So where did this passion from you guys come from? And whoever wants to speak to it can kind of, just speak to it.
Okay.
I guess I can say that I just grew up really immersed in natural living. My grandmother and my mother taught me to harvest wild medicinal plants from the surrounding desert areas, and we always had that connection. My grandfather grew trees, sold them at the farmers market, and my dad grew up in Austria. He was also very immersed in the nature, spirit culture there. Told us stories of fairies when we were little, and we loved being out in the forest. He would teach us to gather wild strawberries, and so I've just always had a passion for being as close to nature as possible, and would like to pass that on to my children and whoever else is willing to immerse themselves in it.
That's beautiful. You too, Jesse?
For me, it was like my earliest recollection. I was hiking with my parents. I wasn't hiking, I was sleeping on my dad's shoulders, and I woke up in a field of flowers, and I was just like, cool, I'm in heaven. I've arrived, this is the place I'm meant to be, And I used to run around, I grew up in Los Alamos, and there's forests out everyone's back door, and I would run around, barefoot and pretend to be a little Native American guy. I don't know if I have some Native roots in my ancestry, whether that was like trying to come through or whatever, but I have just always been fascinated with indigenous living and naturalistic living and nature and softness and, the things that we need to try to bring into the world more and more now, to try and pave the way for the next generation. And it really took a spike after I had children, and the responsibility that I have to them to make sure that the world will be, a beautiful, clean, healthy world.
Beautiful. Talk to me about why permaculture, and what is permaculture, one, and why it's so absolutely vital, for the world right now, and for each of us to start becoming aware of it and the benefits that are coming from it. And what's the difference between permaculture and just gardening?
Okay, maybe I'll speak to that one because I have the most practice with this. So permaculture was devised by a man named Bill Mollison in the 70s, and he essentially went around the world and collected ethnographic information on agricultural processes and ways, the world over. And he kind of compiled them all into one design science that utilizes rainwater harvesting, food forests where you stack systems, so you get diversity and symbiosis going on, and planting leguminous nitrogen fixers to create soil instead of bringing in material, non-till agriculture, because 90% of the life on the planet is actually below the soil. We think we're all great up here on the surface, but most of the biota on the planet is actually down in the soil. So it's a different way of designing for gardening and for agriculture, in which you're utilizing nature's systems, and you're essentially just bumping them up, giving them a little extra push. And he talks about being global gardener, and I feel that I strongly feel that that's sort of the call of all of us. We're meant to be life cultivationists, to take care of life, to take care of our life, our family's life, the life of the earth and the plants, and etc., and to step into that responsibility. So that's kind of in a nutshell what permaculture is versus regular agriculture or regular gardening. In terms of agriculture in particular, Bill Mollison challenges his students to grow 8 acres worth of produce on 1 acre. And that's because of this way in which you stack functions and layer things up like a forest would.
Not monoculture, right?
Not monoculture.
Just growing of all corn or all beans or whatever.
And particularly focusing on perennial plants too that are deep-rooted, long-lasting. They get larger and larger every year. You know, you don't have to till the soil and release carbon. There's actually more carbon that's released every year from tillage of soil than there is from driving automobiles.
Wow.
Because all that atmospheric gas that has been sequestered by plants is then released. You know, doing perennial agriculture also gives us a way in which we can sequester carbon naturalistically without need for mechanization or any of those inputs, economic or otherwise, that are, you know, kind of make them stumbling blocks. You can plant trees and they can, you know, plant a lot of that carbon right back down in the soil. You know, so on the one hand, it's regenerative on multiple levels. On the other hand, like, you know, regular agriculture, as you said, tends to be, you know, monocropped. So it's really very susceptible to disease and blight and such, and therefore there's more need for, you know, pesticides and et cetera. And, you know, the circle, you know, spirals out of control. So that's sort of the thing too, relenting and releasing our control, trying to control nature in this man versus nature sort of paradigm, to be, you know, man enmeshed in nature, and man as part of nature, and not viewing ourselves as being bad for the earth, but stepping into a new role and a new mode of being the global gardeners and taking care of the earth and taking care of each other, and having that ethos spread into everything we do, all of us, all the time. That would be my vision of, you know, life, of heaven on earth, you know.
So, Anna, this is for you. Where would someone start? Because permaculture is it's pretty involved. It's pretty deep. I mean, you're literally talking about understanding the natural cycles of this planet on a level that's, you know, pretty deep, and most people can feel overwhelmed by that, right? So to just go from monoculture gardening, which, you know, most people understand it, you know, it's in our minds how that works, and we understand that nature has a lot of processes, but not many of us are aware of them. So where would you say to someone, like, where would you start?
I would say start by looking within yourself. You know, because we all have the answers within ourselves. And, you know, Jesse has certification as a permaculture designer, and I am his student. I have been, you know, I've been learning a lot of these permaculture concepts from him in my interactions working in gardens with him. But really, to me, permaculture is a lifestyle. And, you know, in permaculture you have zones. I feel like zone 0 is, you know, in your heart where you start, and it radiates out from there. And the farther you get out, the different numbers of zones farther away from you, they require less interaction. But, you know, zone 0, zone 1, 2, you're immersed in those zones all the time. And if you can't take care of zone 0, you have no hope of taking care of zone 7.
Yeah.
So
Well said.
I just say start within yourself. Do what your heart leads you to, and you know we all know where that's going if we just pay attention to it.
Beautiful.
Just receive it.
It does seem like permaculture is almost a spiritual practice above all else. You know, that reconnection to the planet, and to not, like you said, not just trying to control it, but to listen to it. Okay, so what do you need, Mother? How can I help you? You know.
If only we did that with our mothers, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
as mothers, yeah. And I mean, I'm both a child and a mother, so it's like those two interactions are very different. And you know, when you can step into your power and realize that we all have this choice every moment to, you know, choose respect and choose love and unity, and it doesn't have to mean you're of any kind of religion, or, you know, you look any certain way or eat any certain foods. We all just are here as the unified biodiversity that we are.
It makes me wonder. Then, are we Are we like in our adolescence? Are we finally starting to come back to mom and say, "All right, mom, I guess you were kind of smart." Maybe our early 20s or something like that. Or you came back from college. You're like, "All right, I'm tired. I'm not going to ignore you anymore." That kind of thing. And maybe that's what we're doing. And so let me ask you then, when you say, if this is really what's happening, what do you say to people who say, "Oh, well, these practices is not enough"? Like, permaculture is great for your backyard, but we have to feed a whole planet. 7.5 billion of us. I mean, when you consider all the fields that are plowed to feed everyone, what do you as a permaculturist say to that doubt that we couldn't feed everyone?
Yes, that's a very, 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 very pertinent question, because that's the stress, right? Is that there's not going to be enough food to feed everyone. And that's the other part of our business that we try to bring in is, knowledge of foraging. And you step into that and you realize that the whole world is made of food and medicine, and that Mother Earth is there to support you. And those fears of security start to wane a little bit. And when we find when you take people out and they make connections with the plants, and experience that firsthand, their respect grows, their empowerment grows, and then I think with that, naturally, what would follow would be, greater care of the earth. People feeling moved, to, step up and be like, "Yeah, what do you need, Mom? What can I do?" It is flummoxing. It is a scenario where it looks like we're headed towards a brink, and I know a lot of people feel that palpably. I know I do. And that's been one of my motivators. I'd like to say that it's all come from inspiration, and it does. I'm definitely inspired to live this way, and I would choose this life anyway. But I think right now we have very strong motivations collectively as a race. Do we want to step up and continue to live on this planet? I think we might be voted out by the consortium of life if we continue to act like a cancer. Essentially just feeding off everything and warring with everything. We need to transform our culture into a culture of life instead of a culture of death, where everything is objectified and commodified. And people look at women in magazines, and that's all. Sex is strewn about everywhere, and we have the same sort of objectification with our mother. And having a deeper respect for the feminine, the masculine, I think everybody feels is out of balance, and trying to move more into that space of softness and allowing. And I tell people the greatest amount of permaculture, you could do a ton of permaculture just by stop going to work, stop driving your car. That's a tall order. You can't really stop going to work, I realize. And you can reclaim things in little pieces, I find. You can grow a little lettuce in your backyard, or learn about some food that you can forage, or connect in with the family like we have been able to do this weekend. Has been really medicine for me, because we sort of, I think a lot of us feel this life in isolation.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
And it's easy to feel like there isn't hope, but I feel, like I said before, like we have all the answers. We just need to remember those answers, bring ourselves back to, well, not back, we're always moving forward, we can never go back, but move forward to a visionary world where we understand our connection again. Because I feel like all the problems, including starvation, come from our disconnection with our true nature. And if we can, living a permacultural lifestyle can really bring us back to that place where we are, like going home, like we're not going to do things like monoculture agriculture anymore, because we would have that wisdom. We'd remember that wisdom of the earth, and remember our communications, our relationships with plants. Permaculture does give us hope, I think, because it's not a form of agriculture that rapes the earth. It's a form that nourishes and builds the earth and communities at large.
Yeah, and it's the opposite of like the fast food world we live in. Permaculture requires a long-term investment.
Oh man.
It's not something that you're going to get all the results of it in the first year.
And
Maybe it's the fourth year, the fifth year, and then after that, now you're talking, right?
yeah, that's what it's kind of a slow ramp up. You don't get like the high productive yield first year, like what you're gonna make and grow and sell this season. But over 20, 30 years, you're looking at bumper crops, and having more long-term vision like that, I think, is part of the call as well, to like quit thinking beyond this year or this day. Think about 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, the next generation, etc.
Perennial versus annual.
Yeah. And I think eating perennial foods helps, kind of like a data download for us to understand that better, in our biology.
Yeah.
But
Beautiful. Hannah, what do you think a festival like this, like how does a festival like this help us remember what's already within us?
I guess it just, in a sense, provides access to people who wouldn't otherwise be immersed in this kind of lifestyle. They have access to that kind of information. They can walk by our booth and see what we've been up to, and there's other permaculturalists here as well.
some of our heroes are here, yeah.
Paul Wheaton, Katrina Blair, and many others. They're living the life as well. And most of us in this world, we don't give it a second thought, and then we see these people and we think, oh wow, I could do that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gives you a reminder that it's possible. That it's good to see a living example, and see that it is possible.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think the point of this interview is to really showcase two people who are doing it. Not just two, your whole family. I mean, your business is not just it's my husband's business.
Yeah.
No, it's like a family business, and even your sister's involved and things like that. And people who tune into this interview now can see two other people who are really putting the words to the pavement and really living it and doing it and leading by example, not just words, which of course is always more powerful. And I want to thank you too. Thank you for sitting down with me. How can people find out what you're doing? Where can they find you guys?
Yeah, you can connect with us via our website.
We're building
we just
a
have
website.
a new website.
Yeah,
it's okay.
But we'll have a link to the website on our blog, which is ziaenergetics.wordpress.com.
Perfect. We'll put that up too, so we'll have it. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.